This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com and buildermasterclass.com. My name is Todd DeWalt, and it's my job to help you, the construction business owner and leader, eliminate chaos and maximize profits. Got a great interview for you today with David Broomhead from Tradehounds.com, and we talk a lot on this podcast about the skilled labor issue, the lack of skilled labor, what I call the skilled labor delusion in some cases. But this interview is with David Broomhead from Tradehounds, and he has developed an interesting app to go tackle the skilled labor shortage problem. So here's a few things that you're going to get out of this podcast. You're going to hear about the forgotten group of people that needs to be included if we're going to get young people into the trades. Also, what you can do to help our perception problem that's really behind the skilled labor shortage. We'll also talk about how is COVID-19 going to affect the labor pool going forward, what has changed. David also talks about what the, quote, gig economy is and how it can help solve the labor gap. You'll also hear about Tradehounds, which is described as the LinkedIn for construction workers. And then there are two things that you should publicize if you want to hire good people. So if you're thinking, man, I need to hire good people, or maybe in the future, you're going to need to hire good people, which frankly is just about everybody, then you're going to want to listen to this interview. Good stuff. Before we get into that interview, I do have one resource that I want to share with you. Let me ask you this question. I like to start with questions, you might notice. How many hours did you waste on doing free estimates in the last 30 days? How many tire kickers did you spend time with that ended up not going anywhere? How many people did you do free floor plans or design work or pre-construction work only to get ghosted or find out that they hadn't bought the property, that they were just using your number to keep somebody else honest, or otherwise wasted your time? Think about that. How many hours have you spent or wasted on unqualified leads doing free estimates in the last month? Well, recently, as I've gone through master classes and as I realized after talking to hundreds of construction business owners over the last couple of years, one of the root causes of so many problems is this thing that everybody thinks they have to do, which is free estimates. So I'm here to tell you that the root cause of a lot of your problems could be that you're doing free estimates. So I put together a free training that I want to get in front of you. It's called, very simply, Get Paid for Estimates. There are things you can do to get paid for estimates, and I'm running a webinar series that's available right now. If you go to buildermasterclass.com, you'll see it. There's a free training, Get Paid for Estimates. You can learn how to boost profits and reduce chaos by charging for pre-construction and estimating. And there are three specific things that you're going to take away from this training. Number one, you're going to see how free estimates could be killing your bottom line. You might think, I can't afford to do free estimates because it will put me out of business, but it's very possible that free estimates are killing your bottom line, and I'll explain that. You'll also find out why your ideal customers want to pay you for pre-construction work, and then you'll also find out the 5 pieces to the Get Paid for Estimates bridge, I call it, that need to be in place so you can get paid for estimates. You'll also hear some stories about people who have recently started charging for estimates and they're getting paid for it. So it's good stuff. This is good news. So go to buildermasterclass.com, look for that free training and get signed up for that training and watch the webinar. Could be a live webinar. You might be able to watch a replay. But go to buildermasterclass.com and get yourself in the seat for the Get Paid for Estimates free training. Now, let's get to that interview with David Broomhead. Enjoy. All right, David, thanks for being on the podcast. So we're talking about the skilled labor shortage, the skilled labor gap. But first of all, thanks for being here today. How's it going?
It's a pleasure, Todd. Thanks for having me. It's great. Thanks.
Absolutely. So first of all, we don't need to regurgitate what everybody else is saying about the skilled labor shortage. I certainly have talked about it a lot. I know you talk about it. You've got an entire business, and you're dedicated 100% to that issue, which we'll get into that business and that technology in a few minutes. But what are people not talking about enough when it comes to solving the skilled labor shortage?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a tough one to answer because I've been looking at this problem for the last 5 years, and I've seen a lot of different efforts to try and solve it. And the reality is, it's going to take a lot of time to change it because, to me, it's an educational and a mindset shift. Where you think in America for the last 20 or 30 years, parents and teachers have told students they have to go to college to be successful. And that's just not the reality. I mean, Mike Rose pushed a lot of PR around this. A few other people have done the same. Um, and to change that mindset, you really need to start with the parents and the guidance counselors at schools to show them, hey, a trade is actually a very viable path for their kids. It's safe, it's great pay. You don't have all this debt accumulating when you finish college, and it's actually a very good craft to have. So until that changes, and to me, that needs to start at the top, right? In Washington, there needs to be a massive lobbying effort to kind of start a federal program around that, and then at a state level as well, going in through the schools, the vocational schools, to try and educate teachers and the parents about sending them kids into trades. And in my opinion, that's probably going to be the best chance at trying to do that, because it's been this whole cultural push for the last, like I said, 20, 30 years to go to college. Who knows what will happen after COVID with kids doing, stuff online now, and do they want to pay $60,000 a year to, learn online and have any interaction with their other students? Maybe not. I think this COVID is going to really change the economy. So hopefully that will work in our favor and we can get more people back into the trades. But yeah, it's going to be a big push, and it's going to take some time, in my opinion.
Yeah. I sat at it was the Groundbreak conference that Procore put on last November in Phoenix, and Mike Rowe was there speaking. And his question about the skills gap came up, and he said, we have a perception problem in the construction industry, which goes along with what you're saying. There's a perception problem. So if we want young people to get into the trades, they have to buy into it. They have to have a positive image of construction, but then the guidance counselors do, the parents do, some of the other influencers. What do we do? Let's say we can get to the guidance counselors and the teachers and the parents. How do we affect that perception?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there could be a two-tiered approach. I've spoken to a lot of superintendents of vocational schools about this, where one, you have a kind of a construction day, and construction companies have come and done this before, where kids get their hands dirty. Whether it's on the more craft side, whether it's electrical, plumbing, carpentry, they get carpenters and plumbers to come in and show them how to build stuff. It's very interactive and fun. Or it could be on the more technical side, whether you're engineering and things like that. So it's trying to show them the whole spectrum of what the trade's actually about, and the camaraderie that goes around it. You're working outdoors. It's actually, if you've ever been on a job site and worked in it, I loved it growing up. My family had a construction business, and that was one of the biggest things that I loved about it, was that team camaraderie and feeling like you've done a hard day's work and you've used your hands and worked towards your craft. And secondly, it's like that to me is more needs to be focused at the child and the person that's going to be doing it. And then second, above that, the educational piece around what you're getting paid, the safety of it, the kind of long-term benefits of it, the college. That's a more educational piece. I think that parents would really find fascinating, because their mindset is, hey, their brother, uncle, cousin was in the trades 20 years ago getting paid squat, busting his butt off. That's just not the case nowadays. A lot of people in the skilled trades are getting paid double what they used to get paid, which is great. So I think that there needs to be kind of a two-tiered approach, which isn't going to be easy.
Yeah, Yeah, I think one of the things that I took away from listening to that micro talk was, and I think he specifically said, yeah, we need to change the perception. We have a perception problem. We need to show people that the trades are a viable career. But he also said we need to share the stories of people who own businesses. Not only have they had a successful career, but they created a successful business as a construction business owner. So I started interviewing folks who started off in the trades in order to do that. So my plan is I've got a series of podcast episodes I'm putting together. I'm going to put those into a book potentially when I get enough people to do that,
Hmm.
and hopefully get that out in front of people to say, hey, here's the story of Mike McCullum, who started off as a drywall finisher and grew a business, and now he has a very successful business out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And here's Rob Lytle in Michigan, who started a company, and people who started off in the trades and they became business owners. So if anybody's listening and you started off in the trades and you're a business owner and you want to share your story, let me know. I'd like to record it and get it out there and share it with folks. One other thing, uh, I'm thinking, what can business owners do to try to change the perception? And I had a conversation with a client of mine who's a construction business owner, and he said he posted a job for his business, and he just didn't get any hits, didn't get any applications, maybe no good applications. And I said, well, what did you call it? What are you hiring for? And he said, laborer. Now, that makes perfect sense to those of us in the industry. But if you step back, pretend you're 19, 20, 21 years old, and you're looking for a job, do you really want to be called a laborer? And I thought, I had this question. I wonder if anybody's actually posting jobs for unskilled laborer, and they are. Now, who in the hell wants to say, I'm going to go sign up, or hey, mom, I just got this great job as an unskilled laborer? Now, who wants to do that? So part of it, if you want to change the perception, is maybe change the title. Maybe that's what you call them in your HR system, but put on your marketing hat a little bit and talk about your job in a different way, in a way that makes more sense to people that might be interested in it. Like if you're looking for somebody to do renovation of historic homes, call it that. Learn how to restore old homes. Did you love this old house growing up as a kid? Then get the opportunity to do the stuff that Tom Silva did. Just talk about the opportunities in a different way. What else? What's one thing that construction business owners and leaders listening to this can do to help their perception problem? What do you think?
What I've seen being successful in Massachusetts is doing like a career day or trades day at their local school or college, where they, like I mentioned earlier, they come into the school, set up a bunch of different stations, and it allows the kids to get their hands dirty, and meet people in the trades and see what it's all about. And secondly, to connect with these business owners and show them that, hey, I can either be successful being in a specific craft, or I can start my own business up and be entrepreneurial. And, I've known some very successful, people that have started off in the trades, and my family being one of them. And my mother was actually the GC and had all her brothers working for her. And that's how our family got started with our construction business. So, if you're a hard worker and, have an eye for a certain craft, then you can go a very long way. And it's just giving the kids that opportunity and getting in front of them. I think is the hardest part, and where I've seen success here in Massachusetts.
Yep, great advice. I would say tell your story, get your stuff out there. Talk about, you're not really talking about yourself. A lot of people are reluctant to post on social media because whatever reason, but if we want to change the perception problem, then people need to know what's going on the job sites, the cool stuff that they're building. And who knows, think about this old house, Tom Silva and those guys. There are tens of thousands of young people that fell in love with home construction. because they watch This Old House. Now, maybe you don't have a TV show, but just share your story, share the cool stuff that you're building,
Yeah,
and you'd be surprised at what it does.
absolutely.
All right, so here we are, unfortunately, still talking about COVID in August of 2020. There's lots of talk about what to do and all the housekeeping, sanitation type stuff. But I'm curious, since you have a unique vantage point and a unique focus on the labor pool in the construction industry, how is COVID going to affect the labor pool or labor in the construction industry going forward? Like, what has changed that people may not be aware of?
Sure. So, firstly, we know it's going to be around until we at least have a scalable vaccine, which is people are saying, July 2021. So we probably got another year of this, depending on how bad it is in your state and what the governor decides to do or not. It really depends. But, we're considered essential business, which is great. Construction sites were one of the first things that were reopened. A lot of sites across America were. So that's a good thing going for us. But, safety is probably like the number one biggest priority for a lot of businesses out there, right? They got a lot of guys in high-risk situations that want to get them home safe. That doesn't stop with COVID. So the statistic that I've read is around 40% of the labor market has been furloughed, laid off, whatever you want to call it, which is very significant. Some people, this is what we have to deal with, right? Firstly, the labor pool itself, people that don't want to come back to work because, one, they're still getting their stimulus check from the government and they're actually making more money staying at home, going fishing or hunting than going into work. So why go and risk work when I can enjoy summer? You got those guys, right? Then you've got the people that are like, hey, do I want to go into work and risk getting COVID and coming back and spread it to my family? No. You got that pool as well. And then thirdly, it's also just a timing thing of people coming back where some job sites are, you're only working Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We can only give you X amount of hours. And again, I can sit at home and get a stimulus check and don't have to put up with that. From the company side, it's even more challenging, right? Because your timeline has been highly affected by this, and the labor inputs have been affected. Around job sites are around 80% in Boston right now, a capacity, and they're doing a couple of things to combat COVID. Firstly, there's a daily check-in. You do a temperature check. You've got to wash your hands, wear a face mask, go through all the protocol. And then a lot of places also check your temperature at the end of the day as well. And as soon as you get one of the symptoms, you get tested straight away because they don't want it to spread on site. A lot of it is social distancing. Like most people on job sites anyway, social distance, depending on how big the site is, are kind of the big things, the protocols that workers have to go through. And like I said earlier, it's, you stick with your pod of workers. You're coming in on, say, every other day and stick with those groups. You can't kind of like cross-contaminate. That seems to be working so far. Obviously, everyone's not back up to 100%, but these are just the guidelines that people are working in with it, whatever their state government has stipulated they can do. They're the rules kind of right now in Massachusetts. I do know kind of in other states, they're a little bit more relaxed, but it really depends on where you are.
There's an interesting shift in housing I've heard about from a few other sources that people are moving out of cities for a variety of reasons. Could be COVID related, protest related, whatever. Are you seeing any trends like that? Are you seeing labor shortages opening up, or labor gaps opening up in certain types of areas like big cities or certain parts of the country? Any trends like that?
Yeah, so there's always been a dislocation of labor in America where 2010 is a great example when there was a big shale gas boom in certain pockets in certain states. There just weren't enough workers there, and it's trying to match the work with the workers has always been the trouble. There's always a lag between labor demand and the housing market. I think what we'll see is a fundamental shift around a lot of people moving out of the city and to a rural place. And things need to get built. So that I think in the next kind of 6 to 12 months, we'll really see the impact of it. I honestly haven't seen that early, but, I'll give you an example where, Boston, for instance, the Seaport area is one little area in downtown, but there's 3,000 apartments coming online at the end of the year. And I don't know who's going to be filling them because, a lot of people will be working from home. So the housing market is going to have some headwinds. It's going to be interesting next kind of like 1 to 2 years, see what happens there.
Yeah, if you were speaking to a group of people who were trying to figure out which trade or which type of work to go after, if they ask you, should I go after restaurants? Should I go after hospitals? Should I go after multifamily? Should I go after single family? What type of work would you recommend they stay away from?
I think retail and, corporate development is obviously a huge one that's going to be impacted. I think with the infrastructure bill looming, anything within one directly impacting infrastructure or the services around infrastructure is going to be booming for the next 10 years. Housing, depending on where, I think is going to be another big one. Probably not in the city, but definitely housing kind of like in rural areas or coastal areas. Areas that I'll kind of stick to and stick clear of.
Good advice. All right. I saw a press release or a blog post on your website that said that the gig economy could help the labor gap. So curious, what do you mean by the gig economy and how do you mean it might help the labor gap?
So the gig economy is kind of a new term that's come about in the last 5 or 10 years, right? Whether it's Uber drivers or delivery drivers, things like this, where they're doing little gigs. You don't have a full-time job or employed by one company. You just they call it the side hustle, where, your car is now your Uber car, or you can do deliveries and things like that. I think that there's potential of grabbing a percentage of that pool of labor, and because of the high paying prices within the construction industry, bringing them across. But obviously there's a training and education gap that needs to be filled depending on what trade you want to go for. The big thing that I'm interested in is just that we just need bodies to get in around job sites, and obviously depending on what that trade is, we can fill it out through certificates and training and things like that.
Yeah, and that's a misconception a lot of people have is from the employee side, they think, well, I have to have a full-time job. It's either all or nothing. And from the employer side, they think, well, I have to hire a full-time employee, and that means I have to have all of the obstacles that come along with a full-time employee. I need them to be in the city. I need them to be full-time. I need to have overhead. I need to have all of this stuff. And right now is a really good time to look at it differently and think, all right, I just need short-term help. I need people for this little spike in activity, or maybe you have resources that are available to farm out as gig workers. So that's good stuff. Let's talk about Tradehounds. What is Tradehounds, and what problem is it solving for people?
Yeah, good question. So, the number one problem we're solving is the sourcing of skilled labor in the construction industry in America. I'm sure anyone that's been in construction or around it, trying to find skilled workers, plumbers, electricians, welders in the commercial, industrial construction industry has been quite challenging because of all the things we've talked about. And, Tradehounds, people have called us the LinkedIn of construction. We are a technology platform that has a large pool of skilled workers using our platform. And, we've purposely just made it for construction workers to interact with. We have a mobile app just for labor workers, where they can go on there, post their work, chat to other skilled workers across America. And now we've purposely held off allowing employers on there, and we just actually launched a jobs platform 2 weeks ago in Massachusetts to allow staffing agencies, contractors to come on there and hire welders, plumbers, carpenters, and things like that. It's $200 to post a job. And so far, so good. We've actually got some really good candidates in there, which is great. The value propositions to both sides. Employers are getting access to a big labor pool, and the workers are getting access to more jobs. So the plan there, Todd, is to roll that out across America in the next 12 to 18 months. We plan to launch down in Texas and Florida either later or earlier later this year. So it's really exciting for us. Our game plan all along when we started Tradehounds and late 2018 was to always kind of be that kind of LinkedIn of construction. But how we got there was very different to what everyone else has done. Things are going great.
So you started out not as a jobs platform, but more of a social app. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how did you attract people to the app? Like what was in it for those people to sign up for the Tradehounds app before there was a job or any way they could potentially make money from it?
Yeah, good question. So, the reason why we went about the strategy first off is, when I had the idea many years ago, I found that if I just launched a job board like everything else out there, and didn't really tailor a product towards the worker, we were gonna lose this battle. Because the number one problem is, no one had built an application or a tool just for the worker. Secondly, I saw a lot of what the workers were doing, and they would share and communicate all their photos via text just with their trades friends. If they posted it on Facebook or would hardly ever do it on LinkedIn, but sometimes LinkedIn and also Instagram, they weren't getting validated because their mom, their cousin, or uncle are on there. They don't understand their craft. So I was like, hey, what happens if I build an application just for skilled workers where they could go on there and see other electrical work and vice versa? Or if they're doing some side work that weekend, they could go on there and see other people's side work and get some ideas for home. So we really want to go for a community feel. And that's why we launched the app. It looks and feels very much like an Instagram, but it's professional in nature because they're all showing off their work. And a lot of people get advice, give advice. They talk about other things in the industry, like what is, the best boot? What's, the best tool? How should I fix this? How should I do that? And it's that whole community feel, which has been really great and which has helped us grow. And a lot of people, we've grown through just a lot of virality on the job side of people talking. We also advertise in other social media outlets to kind of drag it into Tradehounds. But I think that whole sense of community has really brought people together and why we've grown the way we've grown.
That's great stuff. How are you drawing young people into Tradehounds, if you are?
Yeah, it's, a couple of ways. So we work with vocational schools and Skills USA. Skills USA is a great organization, which is national. So that's one way that we try and get, kids jobs, connect them with elder people in the industry where they can get advice and things like that. Like, which trade should I be going into and why? And secondly, we advertise in like other kind of social areas to try and get like younger people in to learn more about the trades themselves.
So how did this get started? Tell us the story of how you and why you decided to create Tradehounds.
Like all good ideas, I was drinking beer with my uncle, and so my fam. I'm actually from Australia, and my family, we're all in the trades. One in particular, my uncle Connie, I always used to paint houses with on the weekend because I enjoy painting. And we went and grabbed a couple of beers after work. This is probably 5 years ago now. And I saw how he was getting work. All these other buddies were there. And I was like, hey, why aren't you guys on LinkedIn? And they're like, what the hell is LinkedIn? So I showed them what LinkedIn was and what it did, the purpose of it. And they're like, hey, like, this is really cool. Like, we don't want to see all this political BS and corporate BS. Like, we just want to see work. It's all about the work. If you did something like that, and where we could show up our craft, we can learn from other people, that's something we would sign up to. So that was the kind of like, okay, that sounds like a cool idea. Someone's probably already done this. Checked out, online back in Australia and America, no one had done it. Some people had tried to solve the problem by building a website, and it was a two-sided marketplace, but again, they couldn't attract the workers. So I just wanted to build something that would attract the workers first, and then you could, add value later through jobs and advertising and, things like that.
And at what point did you know it was going to work?
Well,
or do you know that yet?
So, I mean, I think we'll figure it out. The people we have around us, that I've hired a really good team. It's not going to be easy. Like I tell them every day, like this is not going to be easy. So no one's done it yet. It's 2020 and no one's done it yet. So why the hell not? I think like our strategy is working so far. Hey, we've been live for the last couple of weeks, and we're learning a lot, getting customer feedback, some good, some not so good. It's not going to be easy, but I'm very confident that we'll get it done because we're worker first. We want to add value to the worker's life. So yeah. And then like when I really thought that, hey, like this is very viable was when I came to Boston in 2015 to do an MBA at Babson, which is a business school here, and to pursue this idea. And a customer who I was just getting feedback from about the product offered me $1 million to invest in the business. And I thought, if a customer is feeling the pain point that much that they want to invest, that is a huge validating factor for me to kind of like stay here and pursue this. So I did based off that.
There's a big difference between the way software companies and construction companies launch things. Construction companies want everything to be perfect. Most people want everything to be perfect before they launch it, just because when you're building something, you don't build a building with a bunch of bugs in it. There's just a completely different mindset. So what's your approach to building out a feature or an idea? Do you take the construction approach where you go design it and build it out completely before you launch it? Or do you take more of a technology type approach? What is your approach? If somebody says, hey, I think you should, let's talk about maybe it's the jobs feature that you just rolled out. What was the process for validating that idea, rolling it out, getting feedback, and how are you going to go forward with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we have a ton of ideas come in every day from our hounds out there. Like, hey, I want to be able to zoom in on photos. I want to be able to do this, blah, blah, blah. And what the challenging part is always trying to prioritize your resources that you have, right, to deliver value to whatever customer you have. And, jobs for us was always a huge value prop to both sides. Not only worker getting more money closer to home is a big thing, but for employers that are trying to grow their business and finish the project on time. So what we do and how we do it is, we take a pretty methodical approach where we test it with customers. Like we either show them the product, like a mock-up, and get their feedback. And same for the worker as well. Like we'll show them something and test it and get their feedback. And if it's like overwhelmingly positive and they enjoyed the experience, then we will start building that product. And then the big thing about when you're building technology is you want to get it in the customer's hand as soon as possible and then iterate on top of that. So you don't want to, finish it perfectly like you would a house and all the finishes are made. You want to almost give it to them like 80% done and be like, all right, what else do you want on top of this? Or what should we change? Because when it's in their hand and how they use it without kind of you looking over their shoulder is the most honest feedback you can get. So that's what we do. And that's what we launched the other week with the jobs platform. It wasn't 100% finished. It works. And now we're continually getting like good feedback from customers. Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And then we kind of tweak it going forward. The job platform took 6 months to build. So that was a big one for us. But moving forward, we can do like 2-week little things where we can get it in the customer's hands and iterate it and kind of build that out to the product moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I recommend that similar process whenever you're rolling out a new process or a system in your business. It's the
Mhm.
same way. Don't take the build it to perfection before you roll it out. Get it into people's hands, get their feedback on the front
Yeah,
end.
yeah,
Make sure what I found is that the best way to get people to actively resist a new process or a system is tell them they have to use it and then don't include them in the process.
yeah,
Guaranteed, just about guaranteed failure right there. But if
yeah,
you involve them in the process, say, hey, what do you think? How would you make it better? Get it out there and throw some stuff up against the wall, see what sticks, get their feedback, and then
yeah,
iterate. It just works so much better. I've tried the other way a lot, where I went into my cave and perfected systems, at least in my opinion, and then I couldn't believe why nobody cared. It's
yeah.
because I I just went about it all wrong. You mentioned something I want to go back to, that workers are looking for some specific things. So I work with a lot of construction businesses, mostly small businesses, and the common belief among them is I need to hire somebody, but nobody's available. And so in a lot of cases, they either delay it or they don't even try to go find somebody. What advice would you tell small business owners? What do they have as a small business that skilled workers are looking for, if anything?
So the number one thing that I hear is benefits.
Hmm.
Pay is obviously a big one. Everyone knows that. But benefits and safety.
Safety.
I think a lot of people don't realize like how big that is, and especially like we all know that people in the trades are very family orientated, and getting home safe with all 10 fingers is a big thing, especially for their wife and kids. So I would actually publicize that, not only the benefits to you and your family through healthcare or whatever it is, but like, hey, we've had 0 incidents this year on this job site. We've had 0x. I think like that goes a long way because we've actually heard people that we've interviewed that have left companies because of safety reasons.
Hmm.
So that's, I think, the 2 big things that they should be advertising.
Yeah, that's great feedback. I think that probably surprises a lot of people. I think a lot of people would believe that, well, these construction guys, you got to force them to work safely, or you have to, it's going to be a challenge to get them to work safely. So it's really interesting and um, refreshing to hear that people want to work safely, which makes perfect sense. Who is more, I think I'll get up on my soapbox for a minute. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make in their safety programs is believing that people doing the work don't want to work safely, believing that the people doing the work have to be motivated to work safely, that you as the boss or the safety director, the business owner, is more concerned about the worker's safety than the worker is, which is ridiculous.
Mm,
Who has more to lose than that person? So that's really interesting. So if you want to hire, what I'm hearing you say is, if you want to find good people, family oriented, conscientious people, publicize safety and benefits.
yep,
Yeah,
100%, 100%.
good stuff. All right. Also, looking at your website, I see that you guys just raised a pretty significant amount of money, somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million. And what is the plan? Like, what's the big, hairy, audacious goal or the big picture vision that you guys are going after going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's when you're starting a company from scratch, and especially a technology and a venture-backed technology company, um, there's always that kind of like Northern Star, right? Like, what are you doing this for?
Hmm.
Um, and at the end of the day, we want to improve the lives of the worker in America. We feel that they've been undervalued for far too long, and so I see Tradehounds the next 5 or 10 years being a lot of things for a lot of different workers. Getting jobs, getting paid more money. Number 2, getting home safe. We send out safety tips weekly on the platform. We want to get people home safe. 3, education. We want to educate people to get better at their craft, or to be able to upskill, and learn more content, like, how to do X, Y better, and stuff like that, and learn from their peers. And then, like, we want to have other things in there where you can sell your tools secondhand, or you can get discount coupons from companies like, other tool companies or apparel companies, because they need to try and advertise to these men and women online as well. So the real focus has always been on the worker. And hey, along the way, if it's definitely going to allow companies to hire more efficiently and more cost efficiently, which is great. And that's how we make money. We make money from giving access to employers and staffing agencies to hire tool companies to be able to advertise on there, and the value propositions to both sides. At the end of the day, it's really worker first, because they're the ones out there using their hands and sweating their butts off when it's 110 degrees outside in Boston now, building everything around us. So the value is really always focused at them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe that the answer to I call it the skilled labor delusion, because I think we're delusional if we think that we could just hire 300,000 people in the industry and all of our problems will go away. I think the worker focus, I think all of our problems or all of our solutions are probably in the hearts and the minds of the 7 million people who work in the construction industry in America already. And they just need to be valued. They need to be well led instead of managed. They need to be empowered. They need to just be plugged in instead of micromanaged. And I think most of our problems will go away. I work with companies every day that are attracting quality people because of their approach to people, and they call them internal customers instead of employees, and they value their people, and they understand that these people are making an exchange of value. They're putting their lives and their safety and their everything on the line, and they just want a good place to work and have their needs taken care of. And I believe the answer is not out there. We keep looking for this silver bullet, and I think you're on the right track. I think valuing the workers, taking care of the people we have, treating them really well, and getting them together in a community it's going to go a long way toward solving this skilled labor delusion, as I like to call it. So great stuff. This is exciting. I'm glad that things are going well for you guys, and look forward to what you do in the future. If people want to get involved, whether it's as a skilled worker who wants to get on the app and see cool pictures and share cool pictures, or if they're an employer who wants to post jobs, where should people go?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been a great hour. So the app's free to download. Anyone can download it. Check it out. If you're an employer and want to chat, just go onto the website and kind of follow the channels through there, or shoot me an email at david@tradehounds.com and we can connect.
Fantastic. So tradehounds.com, and good stuff. So thanks for doing what you're doing. I know can't imagine the obstacles you've overcome to get to this point, but I appreciate what you're doing, and thanks so much for sharing.
All right, Todd, hey, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate it, and hopefully we can fix the delusion soon.
There you go. Hopefully you got some value out of that. Go check out what David is up to with Tradehounds, and don't forget, if you want to see how other people are getting paid for estimates and you want to stop wasting time with tire kickers, and you'll also learn about my story with a guy named Terry that I wasted a lot of time with, that really burned me on doing free estimates years ago. Then go to buildermasterclass.com, get signed up for the free training that I'm doing, and you'll see how you can actually boost profits and attract ideal customers by charging for estimates. And then here's some stories about how other people just like yourself are doing it. This is for builders, remodelers, general contractors of all types. It's not necessarily appropriate for other people if you're doing a specific trade, but if you are a general contractor and you find yourself doing a lot of planning, pre-construction, design work, and a lot of detailed estimates, then this is for you. Go to buildermasterclass.com, grab your seat for that free training. As always, if you could take a moment and leave a rating and or a review for this podcast, I would appreciate it. That helps get the word out there to everybody else. And if you could share this podcast with somebody that might get some value out of it, I would appreciate that as well. And you can reach me if you have questions, you want to contact me, go to constructionleadingedge.com. That is my homepage. There's a contact form there. And let me know what I can do for you. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.